Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to F1 Manager. This is episode 62. Quick programming note. For one, the episode's going to be quite a bit shorter, but also I'm re-recording the voiceover to this one. My microphone is very, very sensitive and on a boom mic, and every once in a while, the tiniest wrong movement of that boom will lead to it being unplugged, and that has happened here, so I'm having to re-record this after the fact, but that also allows me to condense things down a bit more because I'm recording this late at night. I actually just got done coaching my basketball team to an overtime victory, so yay for that one. But onto this front wing. We are into a new time period, so we are working on the next upgrades. The underfloor is not done yet, but we do have 2 vacancies in the upgrade column, and we are going to get 1 more upgrade for this year. That's it for the whole year, it looks like. And we're going to start with the front wing, and that front wing, we're going to go all in on this one and also try to put the 6 engineers to get it done as fast as possible, which looks like that's going to take us a while. It's going to take us a while, 54 days. So we will have to try to rush this one to get it done a little bit faster, which will get it done in just over a month, just in time for the last couple of races, 36 days on that. Our second upgrade that we are going to do right now is not for the current season, but research for the next season, and it's going to be with the suspension area. There's also enough time to get after contract renewal talks with Porsche once again. Only enough patience for a single conversation, but we're going from 4.2 million, our last offer, to now 4.8 million for the next offer, which is actually identical to what Albon is making now. Now, Albon was an 80 when he signed this contract. Porsche is a 78, so you would think he would accept that, but he's been lower in other areas than what Albon was, so we'll see if he actually accepts that or not. Still not happy with it, but does he accept the contract? Still no contract for next year with Porsche just yet. Next race is Monza, and last year was a good year for us with both cars in the points. Albon finishing on the podium in 3rd place and Porsche getting 6th, and that was also the point in the year where we started to see Porsche's pace get a lot closer to Albon, as we had been developing his pace through the regular upgrades were all going into pace, and it was late last season where he finally had that sorted out.
Welcome to Life in the Fast Lane. We're here at Monza in Italy, the home of Ferrari. But who will take home the points this weekend? Let's find out as we get started with the Italian Grand Prix. Monza, a centurion among circuits, dripping with motorsport history. Expect to see cars fly by, as 80% of the track is tackled at full throttle. It's not all go, however, and brakes can be prone to overheating through the tight chicanes that Monza has to offer. With the season nearly concluded, time is running out for the teams. Can anyone make a last-minute breakthrough? Can the leading drivers hold on? Only time will tell.
And we're on to qualifying. We've already done our banker lap getting us just 12th and 14th. We set out normally, but it still put us at the very, very back end of the group, even though I had clicked the button much sooner than everybody else. And with half a second, not to spare, the short side by half a second, both Porsche and Albon do not get a second run in. I was absolutely furious at this one because I had clicked the button, definitely not first, but only half the cars had gone out when I clicked the button for Porsche to go, and then a few seconds later clicked the button for Albon. There was a lot of cars still pulling out of their garages, and then when they eventually pulled out, there was a little bit more of a gap than there should be at that point. It was heavily delayed, and we ended up not getting a second run in, even though I had done my part and clicked the button quite early. I was fuming at this point because our times weren't great. 12th and 14th. You can't afford to not get a second run. We had fresh tires for this run because I was fearful that we were not going to get out of Q1. And as some of the cars reach, we are down to 14th and 15th, and the last car is Sonoda, and he ends up splitting us, which bumps Albon out. P16 for Albon. Porsche just makes it into Q2, where he had a good first lap, good enough for 10th place, and we ride on board for his second and final lap here of Q2. Checking in on sector times now, the whole back 5 are doing good except Leclerc. Leclerc came out on used tires after a messed up first run, and he gains no time. He will start from 15th. So there's one guy out of the way, but can we beat some other? Guan Yu Zhou is purple in both of the first 2 sectors. So he and Russell, who had lower times, you know that they're going to go up. So 2 out of 3 guys go up. Sonoda goes up, but still behind us. So right now it's Ocon and Zhou, and you know Zhou's going to be way faster. Ocon goes ahead of us, down to P12 now. Zhou goes ahead of us now, P13. Can we move back up? Can we get out of Q2? We move up, but not that far, only P11. So that is a P11. No, make that P12. There was another car behind us. Vettel, I believe it was, and Vettel goes 11th. Strategy for the race, 1 stopper, and we're going from mediums to soft. Since we're towards the back end of the grid a little bit, I figured I'll take all that I can get. Extra pace advantage, and we are going to have to be very, very conservative on tires for this race, which made the race go much faster anyway, not just because I'm speeding it up as we do the commentary this time around. I did underfuel, not by 1 but by 2 laps to help us on that medium compound keep up the pace, but we are, over the course of that stint, going to have to lift and coast a fair bit to get the fuel right, so that once we have the soft compound, we can hopefully go much faster.
It's a bit of a cloudy day for the race, but the atmosphere, as ever, is electric. Williams here. They're in the front half of the pack, so there's plenty of potential for them. And then we've got Alex Albon. They're in the back half of the pack, so they'll need to work hard if they want a podium finish. And we're just moments away now. Here we are at the oldest circuit in Europe for this, the Italian Grand Prix. And it's lights out and away we go.
And we are racing in Monza, lap 1 of just 53 laps here. We cannot go hard for longs here. So Pourchaire off the line is beaten by Perez on the softs, but he's got the inside for turn 1. He'll have the outside for turn 2, but it looks like he comes across, and no, he's still a little behind Perez, but we are pushing here to see if we can't hold that P10, and Pourchaire does. So he will get ahead, and then we're going to very quickly settle in because we don't have the spare fuel, and we definitely don't have the spare tire wear either. So standard on everything, and Albon holds his starting position, which was P16. We're going to settle him in a couple of turns later, and we're settling in for the long haul quite early and hoping that the medium compound and being light, we can keep up with those on the softs, because our pace is not great. We did not get in the top 10 qualifying wise, not naturally anyway. Penalties moved us up to just 10th place. But as DRS gets enabled here, we are P10 and P16 still, and we're at that minus 3.8 kilograms that we started the race on, so at least we didn't make it worse. But you can see that just as we get into DRS range, Pourchaire falls out of DRS. So settling in without the DRS, he already lost that 1 second and is now getting challenged by Perez. For now, we hold him off, and it's just 1.08. Can we close it back down? So I'm going to try to go aggressive and use the overtake and see if we can't get back within 1 second. But you can see that gap is now hovering at about 1.1. It's getting slightly worse here. Meanwhile, I decided Albon, who is just 4/10 down on Sonoda, needs to start conserving fuel and settling in. Forward movement, passing cars, is something I'm going to be looking to do on the last stint, not necessarily on the first stint. In fact, I'd like to extend by a couple laps if we could here on this stint to play that advantage even more. And Perez eventually now, he's made it around Pourchaire, but that could be a good thing because Perez at 1.4 seconds down can hopefully close that gap back up and get us back within DRS range, because that DRS is going to be hugely important to Pourchaire's race. Pourchaire, of course, in the best position here, hovering right at the edge of the points, and we see a gap open up with Ocon already 1.4 down. Gasly is 2.6 down. The Aston Martin's definitely off pace, and we have a lockup We have a lockup, and it's Pourchaire.
Is that a
Pourchaire
lockup?
has locked up. He has fallen from 11th place and rejoins in P18. Just ahead of the Aston Martins, and eventually actually one of the Aston Martins passes him while we were getting back up to speed. So that is absolutely devastating mistake from Pourchaire there. Very costly at this stage, that it puts him not only out of that DRS train, but it puts him well down to the other one. And Albon's in 15th, and Pourchaire is battling with Gasly for 17th and 18th. It's not a great place to be, but Albon has made a pass on Tsunoda. It's one position. Perez is making his way. Well, no, Perez isn't making his way. That's just where he is. But we have a pretty big gap. Well, not big gap. Leclerc is a couple seconds down. So the first train is 11 cars. Second train starts with Leclerc. Albon just a couple cars back. The third train, Pourchaire. Pourchaire, by the time we rejoined and got going, he was 8 seconds down. Now, on lap 15, going pretty fast here, but now on lap 15, Pourchaire and Gasly back and forth, but now 12 seconds down instead of 8.5. So they've lost another 3.5 seconds just on Leclerc. Leclerc, meanwhile, is 2.7. Ferrari really does not have a great pace here at this point in the season either. So they, like us, have slowed. We have saved some fuel here during the last 19 laps. We went from 3.8 down to a deficit of 2.3 with both cars. But Pourchaire, you can see here, Hamilton first in the pits, and here's a big group of cars all into the pits. These are the guys on the soft compound, which was not quite half the field. I think about 9 out of the 20 cars were on the soft compound, and you can see majority of those, 7 of those pitting right now. Russell stays out. He will pit a lap from now. Will be the last one running. You can see tire wear is good. We're at 62%. Our expected time to stop is lap 33, so we've got 13 more laps to go, and that will be 20 laps from the finish, which is exact opposite of a lot of these guys now. There's Russell and his pit stop. That now leaves everyone on the medium compound. For now, with those guys pitting, the field was still relatively bunched up. So that is Albon in P6, that is Pourchaire in P9, and now some medium compound guys, Tsunoda and Ocon, who were just behind Albon, have pit on lap 22, just a few laps after those on the softs, and they come out on the hard compound. So Ocon, Tsunoda, Gasly, they are making the one stopper the opposite direction. They are stepping down a step, and they're going from medium to hards. And that's going to hurt their pace. That's going to hurt their race quite a bit, because they didn't gain anything on that first stint. I mean, they were not up the order in a strong place. Pourchaire had a big old gap after everybody pit. He had nobody around him and not great pace. Albon has been following Leclerc for a long time, so Albon keeps getting DRS. Pourchaire was getting further and further behind. Eventually, though, guys that pit, Guan Yu Zhou, the first car who had pit and was on his second stint, caught up to us, passed us. We got DRS for a couple laps, but then Pourchaire loses it. So now Russell catches us and passes us, and we get DRS for a couple laps and then lose it. And now it's Ricciardo who is behind us, and again we're now at over a second, so Ricciardo goes by, and again it's now DRS from him. So Pourchaire backing up, but the benefit of DRS is helping him. The Aston Martins is who we were running with. We'll see as we close in a bit on our pit window here. Pourchaire is not doing well. Pace is not well. And in the case of Albon, we're following Leclerc. And as a result, I've been able to turn the fuel down. You can see Albon's already down to 0.5 kilograms, 0.4 now. He'll pit on his optimal lap, but everybody is pitting the same lap as Pourchaire. So Pourchaire I picked to pit one lap early, and all the other guys on the medium are pitting at the same time. So Albon, this is Pourchaire on pit road. Albon's going to go full attack for that lap and hopefully not lose too much. We were conserving, we are not conserving anymore. He's down to 0.4 kilograms for his deficit, but he has got to attack to stay close. Meanwhile, Pourchaire, of course, he was way behind. It was just Schumacher and the Aston Martins and him at the back of the grid. He was P17. He's going to come back out once again in P17. But what about the Aston Martins? 6 seconds, 5 seconds as they're getting up to speed, and it looks like 5.2. So 5.2. So that they went from DRS to 5 laps later. We are more than 5 seconds ahead. So that was good for Pourchaire. And here is Albon on his pit stop, 2.654 for his stop. It's a good quick stop. But where will we be in relation to Leclerc? Because he was the one yanking us around the track. He was giving us that tow, and there he is. He's going to be past us. We were awfully close. There's a Haas and Alfa Romeo behind us. We come out ahead of them, and there's a big lockup and a crash just behind. That is Alonso into the back. So we've just escaped that one. That was awfully close to catching us out. We need to go standard, but we are 2.4 seconds behind Leclerc.
Now just focus on the Haas.
So Alonso, and this is good because those guys were right on our heels. It takes them both out of the situation. And that is Tsunoda, who actually really only lost a couple seconds there. So Tsunoda continues on right away, but Alonso with a penalty and is now behind Pourchaire. So Pourchaire up 1 spot. He's P16, Albon P14, but 2.5 seconds behind Leclerc. It just does not have the pace to catch Leclerc. So Pourchaire is pretty bad on fuel because we were running alone for a long time, and now that we're just alone anyway, we need to take care of the fuel. And there's another crash just a couple laps later. Verstappen, it looks like he turns in on the AlphaTauri here of Vettel, but Vettel's the one who picks up the penalty, so beats me on how that one happened. But Verstappen and Vettel, so that's 2 more cars back, and that's Albon up to P12. Pourchaire currently P15. Vettel continues on, but is carrying a penalty, and Pourchaire is 10 seconds behind him, so maybe has a chance, but we're trying to get that fuel right. Meanwhile, Albon's at 0.2, 0.3, so he's almost got the fuel right. We've got 10 laps to go. Pourchaire, we've got the fuel right, so we turn that back up to normal, but he's 11 seconds down. 11 seconds down on and closing though. 4 laps to go. Albon's fuel is right, Pourchaire's fuel is right, and Pourchaire trying to close it up. We're going to use his battery here in the last 2 laps because he was 7 seconds behind and Vettel was ahead of Tsunoda, so there was a few more tenths there. So it was about 7 seconds down, but Pourchaire in these last 2 laps is going to close that gap. You can see he's now just 4.5 seconds, about 4.6 seconds behind Vettel. Albon, meanwhile, just cruises to P12. Leclerc caught the group ahead and ends up making some passes. Albon was just caught in no man's land in between, stays P12. Perez leads from Guan Yu Zhou. The AlphaTauri is quick, very quick now, at least in a straight line they are quick. Russell, the last one on the podium, but the front 5 cars who we ride with now are battling it out, coming around the Parabolica and heading for the finish line. Perez, Zhou, Russell, that's your podium. Ricciardo and Hamilton, just a couple seconds separate first from 5th, and then Sainz, Norris, Leclerc, Bottas, Ocon wraps up the points. Magnussen just missing out on points, and Albon, only P12 for Albon today from a P16. The only progress he really made was cars that had mistakes and went backwards, and otherwise he was right where he kind of ran qualifying wise. Vettel gets 13th, but he's got a 5-second penalty, and you can see Tsunoda 3 tenths behind, so Tsunoda's going to move up to 13th, and Pourchaire gets within 3.8, so he's going to finish just over a second ahead, and so that is P12 and P14. So Pourchaire makes 1 mistake, but it was a very costly one, and he's only able to recover up to P14. No points for us today, which is really disappointing. Leclerc not only gets up into the points, and actually up to 8th, where he gets 4 points, but he also gets fastest lap, so he gets an additional point. That's 5. Sainz gets 8, so 13 points for Ferrari and none for us today. So that does close that gap a little bit. It's good that Ferrari's a bit off pace at this point in the season, but our pace is even worse. And so holding them off with half a dozen races to go, that's round 16. So we have 17 through 22. That's it. 6 races is a bit long to try to hold off Ferrari at this point. Verstappen, very comfortable in the points lead now. Albon sits P2, Sainz 3, Perez up to P4 over Porsche. But in the constructors, Red Bull pulls away. They've got the championship wrapped up. Meanwhile, we're looking behind us at Ferrari and a gap that is now just 27 points, which means the points we lost today is almost 50% of what we have left, meaning we lost a third of the lead that we had over them today. And 2 more races like that and we'd be level. Mercedes overtakes McLaren for 4th, which is impressive because McLaren actually had really good pace through practice and seemingly through qualifying, but just couldn't translate that into the race itself. But I'm worried. I'm worried about us going backwards. But we are still on our first underfloor that we've had all season, and we have another underfloor upgrade coming. So hopefully that will make a big difference. It did in the first 2 seasons. But that's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.